Representative Moore, let me ask you something. The idea, you said you believe in the Bible, that that's what marriage is. Do you believe that the laws in this country and the rights that we have, do you believe that they only come from God, or do you believe that the United States works on the principle of agreement among men and women?
Well, I think that the United States works on the principle of the Constitution, and
right.
It's based on the Bible in a lot of ways. I mean, if you look at the Supreme Court, obviously the Ten Commandments is on display in the Supreme Court of the land. So I think the Founding Fathers intended for our laws to be based on Judeo-Christian values. And it's not to say that we shouldn't love everybody, and I love Patricia, she's a good friend of mine. But the way that we represent these people, and when we say that, hey, 81% of Alabamians think that this judge has went against their will, and as a legislature, we're the voice of the people, vox populi. So to be the voice of the people, we represent the people. So it's a dangerous thing, Chris, when we start allowing judges and even the president to use executive orders to overturn the will of the people, because at some point, freedom of the press, I mean, I know that's a stretch, but that's protected by the Constitution. At what point when a federal judge says, well, we violated this politician's civil rights because we can no longer speak negative of him, we start to erode the foundations of law in this country, and that's a slippery slope.
Right, but you know what? You have to look at it in terms of what the trend of intentions are, Representative. When you look at what Chief Justice was saying about Dred Scott or Plessy v. Ferguson, or what you're saying about limiting the media, that's about limiting rights. That's about limiting freedom. The angels here are suggesting that this is about extension of freedom. This is about making America more free, more about its promise.
Chris, Patricia Todd brought up a wonderful point. What if, just for example, let's say that we have two gentlemen, they're not gay, but they're business partners, and one of them is diagnosed with terminal disease, and he decides to get a certificate of marriage to pass the assets of that corporation along to his business partner. Mind you, they're not gay now. But all of a sudden, the government, the foundation of government, these estate taxes, the way you pass it to your spouse, you start to erode some really serious revenue streams that the progressives need to look at.
What happens if a man and a woman are business partners and they do the same thing? I'm coming to you in a second, Representative. If a man and a woman are business partners and they do the same thing, then what? How's it different?
Chris, it could happen, but once you begin to redefine marriage, at what point do we stop?
Okay, and
at what point do you say, okay, well, I'm going to marry so-and-so to pass these assets along? It starts to eat into the progressives' mindset of how we're going to produce a revenue to fund a government based on biblical principles when we're eroding the very foundation of the nation.